all that I'll share in executive session.
Okay. So let's go ahead and move down to rezoning.
So the area to be rezoned is in the queue to be surveyed. As soon as the survey is done, we can do the ordinance and then get it through the process of the planning commissions.
Okay. Do you know roughly how long that takes?
You'll probably see that at a board meeting in February.
Okay.
Who's doing the survey work?
DMA.
I'm sorry?
DMA.
DMA. Oh, they have surveyors?
Yeah, they have in-house survey. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Not a whole lot of them, hence the list.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about rezoning? The only thing I would add to that is, I guess, do we let the broker that came and presented to us know that we're going through these steps? Does that make the place marketable, more marketable? Wait until it's done?
As soon as the board takes action, it would be marketable as community business center.
Okay.
I would think we hold off till we have the survey so that they have an actual blueprint.
Okay. All right, moving on, Finance and Operations Committee, transfer of assets scheduled for 1/1/23.
So right below that, you have the restated ground lease. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it. I finally got my edits done. Frank has not commented, so I don't know how he feels. I didn't specifically ask him to. He's probably waiting for an invitation. I don't know if the board had any thoughts. The one question I did have was, who owns the asset? And we had posed that question to the board last night. And Joe described it as the township would retain the land and the buildings. Everything else goes to the authority. So.
Yeah, I remember going through the process of kind of whittling down all the pages and paragraphs on the leases. So I would like his maybe input to see if we're cut out something that we maybe need. If
you're comfortable with the process thus far, I can ask him to specifically review it and finalize it and then get it on your agenda for November.
Okay.
It just, I did speak to him on the phone today regarding the blue collar amendment, and he told me that he will be out to the 7th as of Friday.
Okay.
So I thought I'd let you, he's going to Michigan, I think he said, so he won't be available.
I'll get it to him before.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Tell him we need it by the 6th.
Okay. So I don't think we had anything else for the Finance and Operations Committee. If that's the last item of business for that committee, do we still keep it?
I think we
going forward?
I think we have to keep it there until we approve it, right?
Yeah, I'm just saying after that, we don't have any other items that we need to add on the agenda for that.
You probably want to keep it just if there's an operational question that comes up. Okay. It would go to that committee, or staff wants to add equipment. It should go to that committee first for vetting.
Okay. All right. Any questions on the restated ground lease or the transfer of assets? All right. Action items, 2023 budget review and approval.
That's Joe and Gina.
Gina and Joe.
Gina and Joe. I am so sorry.
I believe you've all had emailed at least copies of the proposed budget. I'm going to start on what is listed at the bottom as EHRA page 1. And that's going to show that as of 2023, the amount that would be transferred is going to be about $371,000, just over. And going down through the year, we're looking at about $665,000 for greens fees and about $260,000 for power carts rentals. And our season passes we're listing at about 90,000 and pro shop sales at about 50,000. So in total of revenues, we're looking about 1,077,000. And for the rent in 2023 from blue collar, it'll be 8,000 a month. So that would be $96,000. So total revenues that we're looking at for 2023 is going to be 1,173,750.
Just to give you a little bit of background as well, since this is your first budget, just so you understand where it came from. So Jim and Joe Muhal would put together their estimates and their requests. That information then goes to Gina and Joe and myself to take a look at and formulate the budget. Gina and Joe add payroll and benefit information. But the operations and maintenance part of it comes from Jim and Joe.
And on these pages, I think it's obvious, but everything to the left of the black line is the old golf fund. Guys are kick-started with the 2023 budget.
Only thing on here, we don't have anybody to give golf lessons.
I believe that's correct, right, Jim?
Yeah, that revenue is just for junior camp.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions on revenue? Protected revenues? Now, again, it's worth noting that Jim put these numbers together, but everything's weather driven. So the last couple of years, we've had pretty good weather over the course of a year. So just keep in mind, we could have a bad year. Okay.
The next page I'm going to refer to will be actually listed at the bottom as general, page 14.
It might be out.
Actually, it's based on the order that was in.
Okay. We'll go over that later then. So going to the expenditures for 2023, in golf course operations, we're looking at roughly about 31,000. That includes the merchant service fees, the advertising, just general supplies. And then the next section is going to be listing the staffing and benefits that are going to be paid then back to the township for the leased employees. And we'll go over that in a little bit more detail in just a moment. And this section is just for the operations employees. The maintenance employees are going to be listed down a little further. So the contracted services for this section is roughly about $325,000. And then if you keep going down again, there has been a request for about $27,500 to do some cosmetic updates to the pro shop, including the flooring and the patio area, as well as a new countertop for the pro shop. Then we also are including $180,000 to resurface the parking lot.
Any questions? Because I have comments.
Where's the, oh, at the bottom.
I was looking for the,
Oh, no, that's the golf cart fleet and then parking lot 180. Gotcha.
I see here, right? Okay.
Yeah, so the golf cart fleet was from 22 when we purchased it, and 23 is 180 for the parking lot. Now I do not have the simulators in there. That would be another 75,000 to keep that in the back of your mind as you go through this. That would have to be added, and it can be, but I didn't. This was reviewed, not approved, but reviewed by the Board of Supervisors last evening. They approved their preliminary budget, which did not include golf. They had some reservations about spending money on resurfacing the parking lot for fear that it would interfere with whatever happens on the corner. There's also concerns about spending the dollars at this point in time, since the authority doesn't have capital for any improvements, capital improvements. So I'm sharing that forward, take it for what it's worth. But that was the advice of the Board of Supervisors from last night's meeting. I don't think they said anything else about the parking lot.
No.
They were just concerned about having to redo some of that, depending on what happens in the corner.
Well, I'm wondering if we should just look at stoning it then, because we're gonna have a parking issue. If we go forward with this deck, you're gonna have a parking issue. And, you know, I understand the whole concept of, you know, spending dollars for capital improvements that might be torn out or redone as a result of another project. But I think at a minimum, we need to have something that is going to work for parking. Because when we met with Blue Collar, they even said that they would really like to see some of the old range stoned in as well for parking, because they're going to need that much parking by the time they do all the events together. You know, whether it's the regular restaurant, you know, the with the deck plus events. So, you know, I think you know, we probably need to look at that as, I think you can get a lot of stone for 180,000. So are they saying they didn't want that in there at all?
They were concerned that you're spending, you're in the black, and they think that's fabulous. They'd like you to stay in the black. They're concerned about future years and potentially maybe a rainy year, or potentially something major like the roof needs repaired, and you don't have that cushion, and you come back to the township and they would look unfavorably on that request because maybe you put in the parking lot. Why did you spend that? So, and then after getting your spreadsheet this evening, maybe potentially pushing that out a little further and giving yourself a little bit more years to get that cushion created. And when you talk about stone, so it is stone now, but you're talking maybe like a screening, kind of make it more.
Oh, no, just making sure that it's tight and, you know, the parking can occur there, and then possibly stoning some additional area. Because I don't think that this parking lot is going to be large enough, you know, to accommodate all the cars.
So if we expand, then we have to do stormwater. So you might, I don't think you'll spend 180, but.
Yeah, I was going to say, it might be worthwhile to look into, but we should, I think. So can we still have a conversation with the supervisors regarding that?
Well, they didn't say, I mean, it's not their decision, it's yours.
Okay.
So,
yeah, and I agree 100% with being conservative, but, you know, you're talking about keeping,
guaranteed income coming in.
Keep a tenant happy.
right. And it's going to be, they wanted some runway. So, you know, at least for the deck rent, we'd get another almost, well, like $82.50 for 2023. And to your point, I think it's going to help the event business as well. I think that's important to them. And
I mean, right now it's included, and that's what they've reviewed, right?
it is included, yes. And just because it's there doesn't mean you spend it either.
correct.
It's just a marker.
From the revenue side, we didn't have anything projected for the additional deck revenue. Is that correct?
No,
Did not, 'cause
we didn't have the numbers.
It's hard to toe this line of executive session and what we can talk about right now. So can I make a suggestion that maybe we keep the 180 in there for the deck, and then we talk in more detail about it in executive session?
I mean, at the end of this meeting, you can choose to adopt the budget, or you can have another discussion in November. There's no time frame on your budget. You can adopt it whenever you like.
Yeah, I think we still have, you know, if I'm reading this correctly, we still would have a buffer of, even if we spent the 180 of $190,000. Is that right?
You would, yes.
And
Yeah,
then,
you're not going to run
and then
yourself
on
dry.
top of that, even if you miss on your revenue, you know, I think the numbers look pretty favorable for 23. When you look at total revenues versus expenditures, that's 622 is total expenditures expected for next year.
622.
That's just for the operations
Jim's
portion.
budget,
That
not
does
the-
not include the golf maintenance section.
Okay. So there's,
Well, let us go through it all, then you'll kind of get the big picture. Okay.
So, like we said, the 622 is what the total for expenditures would be for the operations budget. Then on page 3, that goes into the maintenance portion. And the general expenses of 50 or 5, just about 5, a little over 5,000. And then the portion that would be for the staffing and benefits that would be sent back then, or would be paid back to the township, is just over 317,000. And then with the chemicals and the landscaping, sand, all of that sort of thing that Joe does uses on a regular basis. And then he has requested an increase from prior years to remove more trees. From what we've been told, there are numerous trees on the golf course that are dead and need to be removed, some of them for safety reasons. So he has asked to increase that budget a little bit to start removing some of those extra trees that need to be taken care of. And the total then for the expenditures of the golf maintenance section is just over 500.
So the golf maintenance equipment purchases, you had gotten Joe Muha's quote, I believe I had sent to you. I don't know the details of that. He was going to be zooming in. I don't know if he can separate it. I don't know why he needs it. I don't have a lot of information, but there again, that's two pieces of equipment, I think it is, that would have to get incorporated into a budget somewhere. We could lease it, we could pay it outright.
So that was where I was kind of confused, because at a similar meeting last year, we talked about that, and we haven't gotten any of that.
No, we got
one piece, right?
So the equipment on here, when you look at the 2022 projected for that last account there, golf maintenance equipment and purchases, you see 193,000.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that everybody was okay with for 2022.
Yep.
Jim can speak to this, I guess, but I think he's gotten 3 pieces of the 5 things, or maybe 4 by now.
Okay.
One thing I know is still on back order.
Yeah, I think one thing was due in November. And then the last piece, they don't even have a date for delivery yet.
But the memo from Joe Muhal recently is for more stuff. And he's saying it'll take to like 2024 to get it.
So he's not asking you for monies in your 23 budget. He's asking you to authorize purchasing for a delivery probably in 24, but it even could be 25. But there's also no price guarantee.
Yeah.
I'm assuming they're not going to take payment till delivery.
Correct.
Okay.
But you are making a financial commitment of your budget numbers in the future. And we did the same thing on the township side for a ladder truck. It's not coming till 2025, but we agreed to purchase it and commit to buying it when it comes in.
without the final price.
No, we have a final price on ours.
Right. So in this case, we would be
That's
looking to approve a purchase with this being the low end. The lowest end.
It's not going to go further.
Right.
So I guess in years past, when you're looking at purchasing equipment, is this common where you're going to have like 5 pieces of equipment and then the next year need another? I just don't know what had happened.
The golf course equipment is generally old, and there was no desire or money to buy new stuff.
There was no replacement plan in place.
Right.
To keep it
So we got
recycled.
So
some
you got
cash and now it's
Big chunks.
So we're in a catch up.
time to catch up.
Got it.
But normally in the budgets, municipal budgets, before all these supply chain problems, we didn't, like, we had, our public works director has also gotten approval to get a dump truck and another truck that won't be here to who knows when, but the board approved it before it was ever funded, if you will. So that's today's world, I guess, but.
Yeah, I guess I would ask Joe, I mean, if that's the case, things are that far out. I mean, is there a market for, you know, equipment that other clubs are upgrading that maybe is above what is currently in place at Four Seasons?
Plus, I think we need to hear from Joe the exact condition of the equipment that he wants to replace. And can it last for a while yet? We don't know.
Well, in this case, this equipment has to last for another at least a year and a half.
Yeah, so we don't know the,
So,
you know, without speaking to Joe, we don't know.
Okay.
To Ryan's point, if I'm understanding what he's asking, is there any such thing as a secondary or a used market for this kind of equipment? And if there is it still eligible for any kind of co-stars participation? Or is that out the window because it's not new?
Depends who you buy it from.
Okay.
I don't know that there's a secondary market very active. I think we asked Joe Muha that the last time. And I don't know that, I think he asked that question of the vendor. But it's worthy to ask again. I mean,
I feel like we may have asked that on the golf carts, right? Or was it the equipment?
Was it? I'm not sure.
I think it was the
think it
cart
was
and
the golf carts.
Yeah, the golf carts, and the difference was not a whole lot,
Yeah.
which was shocking, but makes sense.
Because I think Conestoga did that with their golf carts. I think they bought them from another club, but when they upgraded, but yeah, I just, one, I'd like to know what the other stuff is that, I guess, the gap and the new stuff that we purchased last year, and I guess what he needs now.
Yeah, he's gonna have to explain. Jim, I'm assuming you don't know much about what he's asking for.
No, I just got brought into the loop on this a week ago, so I know the issues are the equipment, the hours on the equipment are just getting up there where you normally start investing a lot more to repair them. So that's why he was checking into it. And then the guy told him that they would have to order now for delivery in 24 or 25.
I think his request is more than two pieces too. It's 3 or 4 things.
Yeah, he's got 4 on here.
And what's the total? I looked at it, but I don't have it in front of me. Give or take.
I'm gonna have to add this one up here.
Is it more than 193,000?
Yeah.
Pretty darn close to it, I think. One piece is 80.
No, it's a lot more than that, Cindy.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Dan's adding it up.
240.
240.
Well, I guess we don't really have much to go off of right now, so.
Okay,
I'd like to back up
yeah.
to the line item for golf maintenance, staffing, benefit services, and over in the notes, it talks about reimbursing the township for River Basin Commission fees.
You're referring to like the 317?
Yeah, if
So-
I'm
so
reading
what's
this right,
happening is the township is no longer will have a golf fund.
right,
All the employees over there, the 5 full-time people and all the part-timers are still township employees. So they're gonna be incorporated into the township's general fund. So what this is reflecting is reimbursing the 100% of those employee costs that the authority will be leasing, reimbursing the general fund.
There's a line item breakdown on that on page 5 of your document.
I actually misspoke. I was looking at all I saw is SRBC fees, and I'll confess
Oh,
I
I'm
have
sorry.
I have to check my attitude because I don't have a good one about the SRBC.
Yeah,
That's gonna be it, but
Okay.
we're still in the holding pattern on that one.
Well, and I also noticed that for our budget, that is blank. So that means that if there is anything, the township will be bearing that cost.
No?
You know where I'm going with this, so I'll refrain from any more comments on that particular item.
All right, and at the bottom of that page, then that shows that the golf maintenance total is just over 551,000. The next page is just showing, there's some history in here just because we had the banquet facilities in the past, so that is all down to zero. But if you look at the total towards the bottom for the operating costs, we're just over 1,174,000.
Excuse me. So Mike, back to your point, the revenues are projected at roughly 1,174,000, and the total expenses are pretty much the same number.
But that also includes your CapEx dollars, right?
So I'm
For
sorry.
expenditures, your capital expenditures,
That includes,
that included that under your total.
Yeah.
So that
The 180.
the 180 is in there.
that includes you don't mean like the parking lot and stuff like that, or?
Well, there's a line item in here just above the one, I'm sorry, under golf course operations, right? That 180 was in the 622, 839 total, right?
That's in there.
So what I'm saying, I guess where I am is we're $371,000 there. So our revenues match expenses at this point, and we're still not dipping into the 371.
Right, but Gina's going to say it next. The very last number on here
Is the debt number.
is the second loan payment.
Right.
The 142 would be the second of the 4-year loan for the golf carts and the equipment that was purchased. And so that would leave a ending cash balance of just over 228,000.
I mean, and if the authority wants to change the way we present the budget, we can certainly do that. We can pull out the capital items. Because in your world, maybe those capital items,
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure.
definitely not the right person to ask about, because we are, we basically have a CapEx fund and we have revenues and expenses, which are almost always expensed, and we don't, rarely, they have to qualify for expenses, right? And so you're right, they're usually divided in my world, but I get what's done here. I'm really just trying to get my head around available cash.
Right.
So it's okay. It's reconciled. We know that the 180 was inside the 600, and that's okay. I mean, I think, and we still have, after we pay the debt down, we still have 228 in cash.
Correct.
But we're not. But to everybody else's point, is that enough of a hedge to get us?
Right, that would be what you'd walk in with.
That'd be carried forward for next year.
Yeah, and this is just a budget's just a guide, so you don't know.
I say next year, 2024.
Now, I know in the general fund, you keep a 3-month cash flow.
Yeah, in the township main operating fund, it's just a barometer or whatever for us, but we try to maintain at least a 3-month operating reserve at all times.
So in this budget, any thoughts on what that might be?
That would be 1/4 of that 1,174,000, whatever that is.
Right around that 228 number.
300,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 293. So.
Yep. And that's if we spent the full $180,000 to do the parking lot.
Yeah.
And if the revenues hit the way they are, we all hope we beat that revenue projection,
So
No pressure, Jim.
the 78 for the golf cart, was that a one-time deal? Like was that already reimbursed to the township?
We bought the golf carts at 378, and we bought another 193,000 of equipment for the maintenance department. That was 41,000. We paid cash for it out of the general fund. Okay. And that became an interfund loan.
Yep.
Between the golf and now the rec authority. And it's a 4-year payback of 143,000 a year.
So the 378 that's on the last budget,
yeah,
didn't actually hit in 2022 because we're actually doing 142 a month or a year.
I'm sorry.
So I'm just looking at the this is the expenditures, the golf equipment purchases. You have the 378,000.
Yeah, and we had a balance sheet entry, if you will, where we showed the loan coming in of 540,000, And now at the bottom of this, we're showing another balance sheet entry to make a payment on the debt service. So in the expense side, we show the carts cost us $378,000 and the other equipment $191,000.
So I guess my only question about that is why would you have the 378 all hit in the same year, but then at the end we're having the $142,812 loan payment?
Okay, so the township transferred the $540,000 to the golf fund last year.
Okay.
Then the carts came in, we paid cash for them.
Yep.
That's why you see it there.
Okay.
Yeah. Same thing with the other equipment when it all comes in. We'll pay cash. It's in the money is sitting in the golf fund.
Yeah.
To pay on this other mower that's still on order.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So our yearly capital expenditures were, I guess, I guess that's what they were, but we didn't, like you said, we didn't pay for them.
Well, you did, but you had a loan to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
You had a home equity loan.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I see the 571 as proceeds, and then okay. So we're paying that in 2022, 2023, 4 and 5, and then that's done.
Yeah, that's correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. So
those proceeds aren't part of the three, or it is?
I'm sorry.
It is.
The 371 that we have sitting here and beginning cash.
That's what we're projecting will be in the golf account at the end of this year.
But is that the same bucket that the cash is sitting there to pay this equipment with?
Is the starting cash unencumbered?
It's the bank account, if you will. It's everything you own.
Not part of the golf fund is what you're saying.
Okay,
So
so the
we're just gonna
571 that you transferred over is not part of this 371.
That's how you ended up with 371. We did that. That's history. We did the 540. This is what's going to be sitting there at the end of the year. And that would be your starting balance to start your budget for the next year. And then within that, you're going to have to make another $142,000 loan payment and everything else that we laid out.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah. All this having been said, I'm kind of inclined to keep that 180,000 in for the parking lot, whether we use it or not. We can at least use that to build up to pay for some of this equipment. I'm not fond of, you probably saw my email. I kind of in agreement with Tom about this equipment, and yet we're not in a nice position with this because of the supply chain issues. At our business, I'm in the same position. I ordered a track hoe and a backhoe, and one of them I won't get till, I'll be lucky if it's in 2024, but I think to Ryan's or somebody else's point, the numbers are just going to keep creeping up. And yes, they've got in the fine print, we reserve the right that if there's a price change between now and when you get your delivery, you're going to pay the difference. So I'm thinking maybe that 180,000 might be of value to us, even if we don't use it for the parking lot.
And even moving forward, I know we have a couple accounts in the township side, if the authority would like to create a capital reserve line item that doesn't really have a name on it, and just start building that.
I think we should.
Yeah.
I would be in favor of that.
With how cyclical it can be and weather related and just seasonal, that would make sense.
That would just be a disciplined approach to funnel money over for the, not infrastructure, but equipment and whatever else needs done.
Okay.
What's next on your list, Cindy? Gina and I have a different order.
Wages, the wage sheet.
Okay, so now we're at the page. Okay, Gina.
All right, the page now we're looking at is it's at the bottom, it says general 14. And this is kind of a breakdown of what the costs are for the employees that as of the 1st of January will be moved to the general fund. But
It's your page 5. It helps.
Oh.
But this will be costs that will be 100% reimbursed from the rec authority to the township to cover the costs of the employees.
So the top piece of that, the golf course operations, that's what I call the pro shop area. There's 2 full-time people and then a host of part-time employees. And the bottom, the maintenance department is 3 full-time employees and also a lot of part-timers. And then there are related benefits.
And this ties out to, these numbers tie out to the costs, the expense side, right?
They do, Mike, except I should explain the sheet you're looking at the moment. There's line items in both of these budgets, pension costs. The pension costs are not reflected over in your budget because these employees are still township employees and we get state aid for employees, municipal employees. So the state aid will cover the cost here for the pension costs. So that those 2 numbers, the money in and the money out for pension,
There's a difference.
is just in the general fund.
Got it.
But the rest of it would tie back to those numbers you saw.
Got it.
Thank you.
The sheet behind that one is the actual wages. I think someone had asked to see what those were. So those are your individual people, full-time staff, part-time staff. The highlighted section is kind of bright, but I asked Jim and Joe what they see as a starting wage for next year and any adjustments they need for their seasonal staff, because we were hiring people at $8 and $10 an hour. Very difficult to do. So that's where you see those adjustments and the starting wage for those 2 departments. But even though they're township employees, my assumption is because you control the budget, you would want to take control of the wage. And these numbers, your full-time staff reflects a 4% increase, which is the same as the township.
Questions, comments? I think that all makes sense.
The last page that we would have for the budget is a long-range projection. So yet again, everything in the past would be what we would have had in our golf fund. And projecting in 2023 would be the start of the rec authorities portion of that, and then going forward. With the greens fees and the cart rentals and that section, we did just a 1% growth, just as an estimate going forward. And then the tenant rental income, we were leaving it as we had it initially with the current as from 2022 to 2024 at $8,000 a month, and then 2025 through 2026 is 8,500 a month. So that's where those numbers came from. That will be adjusted with whatever is decided with the new lease agreement. And with the expenditures, we're looking at the staffing and benefits, and that is including in 2024 a 4% increase for the full-time staff. And for 2025 and 2020 through 2026, we did a 3.5% increase just as an estimate. And then the 143,000 line 16 shows the golf equipment and the cart payment going for 22, 23, 24, and then ending in 25. So it's looking at the bottom where we've got the ending cash balance. We're projecting to end 2023 with 228,000, in 24 with 161,000, and then 25 and 26 still in the black at 85 and 131,000. And this is all, again, weather permitting for the revenues and as an estimate.
Includes the parking lot, doesn't include equipment, doesn't include capital
Or the simulator.
or the simulator, right?
Yeah, and I think, in 25 is when, the percentage rent kicks in, and based on our discussions with the tenant, those numbers are definitely achievable. So I didn't stretch those or try to.
It's gonna be a nice bump,
It's gonna be a nice bump, yes.
almost like another tenant.
Did the supervisors see this?
Yes, they saw everything.
So did they see the growth rate in revenues going down and then the expense on the expenditures going up by 37%?
They did. I mean,
Because
those
then,
projections are out there.
Yeah.
And they understand that they're guesses.
yeah, because
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I can see taking $180,000 off of that when you see that there's an expense year over year increase of that number.
And just to backtrack, the original 2022 budget, we did not anticipate outright buying the carts or the equipment. We had planned on a 5-year lease purchase.
Mm-hmm.
Then we bought them. So that's what drives that number up to 37%. And the reason it's fallen down another 22% the following year is because that kind of goes away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is basically an as-is, trying to walk it forward the next several years just to get a look at it. It doesn't anticipate any new revenue to the authority, any adjustments to the lease, or any new equipment beyond the parking lot.
Yeah.
So, or improvements. Yeah.
I'll say thank you, Joe and Jeannie. This is your usual stellar job that you guys do every year, putting this together for us. And I'm speaking from back when I was on the board of supervisors. We always appreciated the hard work you guys put into this.
And again, as Cindy mentioned, thank you, Doug. We use the same approach here as we do with our budgets.
Mm-hmm.
So if the authority would like a different format setup, I mean, you just need to let us know.
Add accounts, take them away. That's
Yeah.
all.
Not
You want-
detailed enough or too detailed, whatever.
If you want tracking of something specific, we can certainly do that.
I do like the idea of the 180 going into some sort of reserve fund that gives us some discretion, but that way there's,
Well, we can
as things go along, you might reprioritize depending on operations, and that way you're earmarked. But I think there's still going to be some level of work that'll have to be done to that lot. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a mud pit out here, people driving in on that grass, and I think
we
that's
can definitely open a capital reserve fund in the name of the authority and transfer those funds to a separate pot.
I don't know that we even have to transfer them, just track them separately. I don't know that we need a
No,
separate bank account.
if you want to set the money aside, I would recommend a second account.
Okay.
It's up. Yeah. I mean, I would ask for your recommendation on that. I mean, at some point during the year, as Mike said, we'll probably end up using that. That's not long-term.
If you don't separate it, Cindy, then it would be just in the overall number, and it just keeps rolling into the following year.
right.
It's not all by itself somewhere. So. And then they could make expenditures out of that, specific things that they decide on.
You have it as a placeholder, really as an expense, which is fine, and the 371 is really kind of a sinking fund to take care of some of this debt that we have going forward. But at 25, that burns off at the end of 25, so that's a big nut. That's 143 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So a lot to digest on the budget. I would recommend we just kind of take it away and we'll talk about it in November. And then maybe finalize it in November. If you want to do any adjustments or changes, you can certainly do that then.
No. Does anybody else have any input on the budget? All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to skip the 2024 equipment needs since we don't have, I'm assuming Joe's not on the line. I can't. All the attendees.
Yeah, I'm on the line.
Oh, there he is.
Okay.
Okay.
Joe, we were talking about this earlier. I don't know if you were on the line or not, but
Yeah, it's hard. I was having a hard time getting linked up. Yeah. But I'm
okay.
on.
So if you can you give us a little bit of background on the equipment that you're looking for, and I guess the timeline that was given to you by the vendor?
Yeah, it was kind of, I kind of just put it out there as something that as needs and moving forward, if it was going to be 24 or if it was going to be 25. Just knowing that it's taking, like, for instance, like the sprayer, my vendor told me that it would probably be at least a year and a half to order a sprayer and to receive it. And all I was doing was just kind of ballparking the area of if we can order it, that we would pay for it in 24, if not 25. I mean, that might be impossible to calculate all out. I'm not sure. But that was kind of the whole idea.
Joe, one of the things I thought I read in some of the notes that were coming by me, that even though you order it, they're not going to lock the price in.
I told my vendor, his name's Craig Esmashade. I told him to make sure that the price would be locked in, or if he makes the price escalates a little higher than what he thinks, that would be fine because it might be less. So I kind of told him to escalate the price more than it would be. And thinking that in 24 and as in 25.
Thank you.
So I guess I'd ask the question, what's the state of is this new equipment to replace old equipment, or are these machines that you don't currently have that is more of a, what you would want to have?
It's much more wants, and I mean also replacing if you see the sheet there, the 4500D, I purchased that in 2016. And also the 3500D was purchased in 2016, and they're I don't want to say that I don't want them to start nickel and diming us basically. So for us to buy new equipment, because we put so much money already into the 4500D, into the decks, and basically rebuilding all the rollers and the hydraulic areas and stuff for the pumps. So that's what we was kind of thinking, looking forward, which would be another, I guess, 2 years, that would be something that would be worth purchasing. And also the sprayer was bought in 2014, and we've already rebuilt the pump on it twice, and we've had a couple other issues with the hydrostat system in it, and just looking forward. So them were things that I was looking forward to, maybe in replacing in years to come.
Got it. Yeah, so I'm seeing here golf equipment maintenance is about 27,000. Is that the type of maintenance you're talking about on these machines, or is that on something else?
The 27,000, yeah, we maybe not exactly that number throughout the year. It's close to it that we put in, but that's for all of our equipment that we maintenance every year, and all the PMs and on all the equipment. And then, I mean, we've had machines that we've had to replace engines on and such. You just never know as moving forward year to year what's going to happen. You know, we've had hydraulic pumps go down that we've had to replace. And of course, as we all know, nothing's cheap, and it's very expensive to repair the equipment.
So of the four pieces on here, what would you say is the most immediate need?
Personally, I would say probably the sprayer. The sprayer is the number one piece of equipment. I've always said it. I've been in this business 30 years, and the sprayer is number one. If you don't have a sprayer, you don't have a golf course. And if you're having issues where the sprayer is going down, and which we had a couple issues this year, where we had issues and we had to rebuild the pump like ASAP. And we did it in-house actually. But if you don't have that piece of equipment, yeah, you don't have a golf course.
And we had discussed, I guess, is there any, like, are you able to buy something from another golf course instead of getting it brand new? We don't know. Just thinking if the lead time for one of these new pieces of equipment is 2 to 3 years out, is there any type of market to buy it from, somewhere else, if they've already used it for 2 years, it's out of warranty, where you might be able to get it quicker?
I mean, I haven't checked really into the market, but just knowing, I think, as with everything, with used cars, with used equipment, like it's such a big demand right now. I think it would probably be really hard to find something that would be more reliable. I mean, I'd rather keep what I had and then, put money into it and then, repair whatever we think needs to be repaired on a yearly basis. Other than trying to buy probably a new product, because I think it would just, we'd probably be more so better off buying a brand new one and having a warranty and having a new piece of equipment with the technology than we would be trying to buy something new.
Okay.
I know on the township side, we're all about schedules and deciding when things should be purchased. Joe, can we have you give us a replacement schedule for your equipment?
Yeah, I get hold of Craig tomorrow, and we can figure out a schedule of how everything is. Kind
of list what you have now, the year, the hours,
and
then determine at what year in the future you would need to purchase an estimated dollar number.
Exactly.
So we can kind of plan ahead.
Yeah.
Similar to the golf carts, where we kind of know when we're going to spend that money.
Same thing goes for Jim too. There's probably not as much large ticket items for Jim's department, but same principle would go there too. Whether it be a building roof or weather vane painting.
Yeah.
And Don, I apologize. You could have probably answered the questions while we were waiting for Joe.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Joe?
I'm sorry. I guess I lost my remote there, my connection for a second, but yeah, I appreciate all everything. And again, looking forward to all the equipment. I'll talk to Craig Espenshade from Toro tomorrow, and I'll get all of our numbers, which we have, and I'll get a schematic put together of where we think we need to be with equipment purchases moving forward. But again, looking forward, like I said earlier, the sprayer would probably be number one, because like I said, without the sprayer, and again, our sprayer is fine. We've already rebuilt the pump. I'm pretty sure it's the second time we completely rebuilt the spray pump on it. I just, that's to me always been my number one priority in the business, to make sure that we can get the chemicals out there so we don't get diseases and insects, blah, 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 moving forward. So that would be my biggest purchase looking at the schedule, looking for 24, 25.
All right, well, we'll discuss. We're talking about just expenses in general, so we have to see what we have room for in the budget.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, I think the goal would be if we can get that schedule out to the board as quick, or the authority as quickly as possible, they can see what the schedule is and what kind of expectations are in terms of need. And then maybe we can talk them into authorizing us to purchase possibly the sprayer for delivery probably in 24, 25.
Yeah.
And we'll just factor that into the long-term budget.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, greatly appreciate it. Yeah.
And then follow that up with whatever is the next in line.
Yeah, I'm like I said, the mowers and the other mowers that's on that list, things. It's kind of a wish list, but of course they're all going to be aged, and we have put a lot of money into all them pieces of equipment, other than the Workman GTX, which would be a brand new piece of equipment from what we have. But the 4500D and 3500D is which we already have, but we've been putting a lot of money into them, and basically rebuilding the decks, rebuilding the hydraulic pumps. So again, I just don't want to keep putting a bunch of money into, and we're going to get money out of them. Basically, I could probably sell them. I could probably sell them on the market or sell them through, or we can get through Toro. I don't know exact numbers, but I'm sure I can get something out of them.
We'll provide that on the schedule too.
Yeah.
What your estimate
maintenance
is.
cost would be important to know.
And the only other thing I'd add is for the proposal that you sent, if you can ask them for what the actual numbers are now, maybe not what they think it's going to be projected in 2025.
Okay.
That way we have exactly what it would cost right now, and we can do our own forecasting.
Okay. Yep. I can do that. Yep.
Any other questions?
Joe, do you have any of the, I'm going to say the FETSIC equipment, or is that all gone now?
Most of those pieces are going. There might be maybe 2 golf carts, and I think we have what they called a core harvester that was still from him, and actually a top dresser. Things are still on the list. Yeah, that we still do have. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I was just curious.
Still has a pickup truck.
What is that?
What is it?
East Hempfield equipment, or?
It predates Joe, basically.
I got you.
Older equipment.
Okay.
Because there was quite a stretch of time where the township did not buy any equipment for the maintenance. So everything got really, really old.
Yeah.
Joe, of the 5 pieces that you ordered this year, what are you still waiting on?
We're still waiting on the fairway mower. And then we're waiting on, if you see the list, it's called the Pro Pass. There's a good possibility that might not arrive this year, the Pro Pass. And it's still probably slight that we might not get the fairway mower this year, because last I talked to Craig, it was coming off the assembly line in Minnesota. I think it was going to be in November. So there was a good chance that we might not get that fairway mower also delivered before, the end of the year.
Okay.
But those are the only 2 pieces. Everything else on the list from that are scheduled, it's been delivered. Other than that, the fairway unit, and it's called the Pro Pass.
Okay. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
I have a general question. When's the drop dead date for approving the 2023 budget?
There is no approval. There is no date for approval in the Municipal Authorities Act.
Maybe ask it a different way. When are we gonna vote to approve a budget? We're looking to do it in December or or next month?
I mean, it'd be pretty awesome if we didn't have a meeting in December. So we could do it in November, but yes.
I think we can make it work next month.
Your December meeting, I think, is like 3 days before Christmas,
right,
which may not be conducive. Your meeting next month is on a Tuesday because of Thanksgiving. Right. So.
Okay.
So I don't know what your plan is, November, December.
I would like to have everybody digest the budget, maybe come back next meeting and have a conversation, because Tom did send an email out, so I'd like to at least get his comments about the budget before we do anything further. So, any other questions, comments about the 2024 equipment needs or budget? All right, goals and objectives for the golf course. You want to talk about the simulator? I don't know if we have any other updates since our last meeting, other than do we want to pull the trigger on it or not?
So the simulator, I went based on Mike's numbers he gave us last time, looked at the barn and figured it was probably about 600 square feet that we would need for a room. Fitting that out would be about $35,000. Ballpark number, out of the blue almost. And then add that to that with the 30,000 for the simulator. So you're looking at probably a $75,000 initiative.
Which isn't in here.
It is not in here at this current time, no. And the reason it isn't was because as Joe and I and Gina were talking and Jim was talking, I don't know that Jim is totally on board with the simulator. I think he thinks we passed the prime point, that it's kind of flooded. We also have issues with access, control. The days that the Mondays when the restaurant is closed, there's no doors. So they would have access, they would have to have access to the banquet area for the restrooms. Otherwise, they'd have to go back downstairs. In the winter months, the golf course, once it's dark, they're done. So there you'd have to have staffing to at least be on site. There's a lot of things to think about. But if the authority wants to go forward, that's kind of the number, 75.
Has anybody talked to Blue Collar about it?
I haven't. I know Blue Collar did mention at one point they were thinking about putting a simulator in the back room of the snack bar. I think that would be ideal if we could talk them into it.
That's what I was
Get
thinking.
a little bit more money from them for at least.
Well, they already leased that though.
Not the barn.
No, I was in the back room.
Yeah, that's kind of out of the way though.
Yeah.
For them, because they lose control. They can't see it.
Oh, and we still have the bathroom issue.
Yes.
So there,
Yes.
yeah, I
Well,
think.
but they would staff the restaurant. The simulator would only be open when the restaurant's open and the staff is open, or the staff is there, I mean.
Or if they just renovated the barn area. I mean, the
Yeah.
very favorable because they have food and beverage.
Yeah.
So it's kind of right there. They have control. They in and out.
I think the only way the simulator works is if you have food and beverage attached to it.
Mhm.
From a revenue standpoint, I mean, it might be like a nice thing down the road. In lieu of a range, we have a golf simulator that you can go for 20 minutes and, you know, pay $10 instead of hitting balls for 20 minutes before your round. But that's not really revenue generating. That's just more of a nice thing to have. But I don't honestly know what their appetite would be for that with the deck, you know, kind of two different fronts trying to do something. So.
Yeah, I think right now they're focused on the deck because they see a path to additional revenue immediately, you know, that it's more tables, a different atmosphere, you know, a better offering to the people that are there to eat. But I don't disagree that some kind of entertainment piece might go really well with food and beverage, without question. So
I need to have my memory refreshed. Had we, what was the projected return on investment for that, if any?
So it's an hourly rate. And I would say, I don't know, what is it, like $25 an hour or something?
I think we were looking at 3 years return on investment or close to that. If I
That's
recall.
what I thought, and that just sounds a little too good to be true in my mind.
What's that?
That's kind of where I thought I remembered hearing. It just sounds a little too good to be true. And I was down that road one time with a particular driving range we used to have. We got some too good to be true numbers. And
I mean, I think the numbers are doable, but I would agree with Jim that we kind of missed the boat on this. If we would have got into that back in 2019, 20, something like that, we would be okay. But because the demand was so high, I think it obviously increased the cost of these simulators. And the market out there has a ton of these things. So
are we looking for some, if we're looking for some kind of action on this, I'll be glad to make the motion that we just table this.
Yeah, I don't even,
I'll second the motion.
I don't think we have any other discussions, so.
yeah, I think we missed it on that, and we have enough on our hands moving forward here that we don't, I'm just gonna say, like, we don't need to put another problem child in the mix, right, at the time.
All right, all in favor of tabling the golf simulator, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passed. So we'll table that from next year's.
Speaking of problem children, the driving range. That was a discussion point at the meeting last night of the Board of Supervisors. There is a strong feeling of the 3 members present that somehow, some way, that should be utilized as a driving range. We explained that we had looked at putting a top net, which is what would be the next step. I think we had gotten pricing probably 2 years ago, maybe 3 at this point.
It's like 60,000, I think.
It was a lot of money. And there was no interest in doing that at the time, but there is a feeling that if it were playable, that would be a moneymaker. Jim didn't agree with this, but I'm putting it out there, sharing their information with you.
So Jim, and I have never used it, and this seems like a simple solution. Instead of using the whole driving range, why would you not just put it 10 feet from the end of the net and just hit a golf ball into the net? Does that not take away the top issue? It's the same as hitting into like a net in your garage or a net in a simulator.
Well, like I had brought up, I think it's been a year now when Tom wanted to table everything with the range, but we did find a range ball that you can use out there. And essentially, if it hits anything, it's not going to do any damage. So it's, just be a warm up. And that's what that range was never meant to be, a true driving range, obviously. But with the top on it, I just don't see spending that money. But I think if we utilize the ball that we're talking about, Will at the time had gone out and he was hitting the ball, and I mean the trajectory is controlled by the ball. It's something you can use in your backyard. But I know blue collar, is looking for additional parking. So obviously if we needed to move it up, we could do that and still utilize the same ball. And the only thing is with a regular ball, the netting there isn't for impact. So it's not made to, what you're talking about is 10 feet away, hitting into it, it'll just go right through it.
Okay.
When was this range installed?
I'm sorry, 2016 or 2017?
16 or 17, I think.
Yeah, it was finished in 2017 going into 2018.
I just have recollections of a too good to be true. Payback just sounded way too magical and we bit, and it just hasn't, it has dramatically underperformed from the day that I recall was finished.
As Perry pointed out, the property or the public works director, the nets are aging and being out in the sun, they're going to disintegrate probably in the next couple of years. I think he said they're really good for 5 or 6 years. So
That's about it.
that's what he said last night.
He said they're at least 5 years old. He thinks 10 years to life.
10 years, 10-year life.
Okay.
Sorry.
So like not using it, we're halfway through the life.
So Jim, what do you think you could charge for that? And like, how many people do you think would bite on that in a given day?
On a daily basis, we get anywhere from 5 to 10 requests, not counting call-ins. I mean, people are just looking to hit, a basket of balls that you charge $5 for. And you have 25 balls, they can hit them, warm up, and then go play.
What would be the plan to retrieve them?
Oh, the same as we did before. We've got rollers to pick them up.
How much can we sell those rollers for?
At this point, maybe $50.
Okay. Do you have the balls? I remember last year that you were talking about purchasing them. They weren't overly
Nah, because Tom had said to table it, so I didn't move forward with anything.
So what would be the cost?
It's about $800 to $1,200, depending on how many you get.
How many is 800?
It's about 2,800 balls.
I have a concern if anybody would really use them, if they're not going to be happy with it. We've talked about this for over 2 years. And we keep coming around that there's no viable way to make this technically feasible. It's not feasible to put a cover on it. I think we really should start thinking about maybe it's time to have a motion to table this for the foreseeable future, because I don't see a simple solution that's going to be cost effective.
Well, my thought is if Jim's getting 5 to 10 requests a day, if he's going to charge $5 a ball, that's $50 a day, and it's going to cost an additional $800. We already sunk the cost. So, that seems like a low risk.
Try and use up
to try to see if we can recoup some of that cost. And if it takes off, fine. If it doesn't, I bet you we get $800 worth of revenue at least in a year from that. So that the return on that, I think, is rather small. Jim, the only thing I worry is that you're short staffed. So if people are out there like rolling and picking up the balls, if you have like 5 people in the morning that go and use it, like, is that going to cause any disruptions in like the carts or checking people out for golf or the starter?
No, the cart attendants in the evening have plenty of time. And it's something that we'd only have to do probably twice a week.
Yeah, you pick it up once a day.
The driving range itself, just a short period we had it open, we brought in close to, I believe the last time I put the numbers together, it was around 40 grand.
I don't remember that.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, we don't remember that, Jim. Where'd that money go?
Never heard that number.
No, they've got I think Joe had sent the report to him. I can see if I still have it.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I don't.
Between the junior and then the revenue, obviously the junior camps utilized it.
You're talking about driving range revenue, not junior camp revenue.
Yeah, I remember the driving range revenue I thought was like less than 1,000. From one of the budgets, I thought it was pretty low, but maybe that was at the time when we shut it down.
I'd have to review that.
Yeah, I'll see if I got the report and I'll send it out.
Well, that would have been quite a few customers to come up with $40,000.
I'm sure it wasn't 4,000.
It was, yeah. Life to date, I hardly remember much of any revenue stream.
I would say we have the facility there. It's already paid for. You're not going to recoup any money from selling any of that stuff. So like, would $800 or $1,000 be smart to invest in those balls to,
I think it's low risk.
even if, well, I mean, yeah, even if we only get 2 years of use out of it, you're gonna make the money back. And at least we're using the dead land that's not making a dollar while we determine what we do actually do with it. I mean, I don't like the idea. I won't use it, but that's just me. Because I'm using it for, I'm going to the driving range for different purposes than just warming up. Like I want to hit a target at a distance, you know. But if it's somebody, you know, if it's, you know, the leagues and different people that are going to pay $10 to go hit these balls just to warm up and, you know, before the rounds, I honestly don't see that. I don't see it being a big deal to do that and at least get some revenue back. I don't think we can lose revenue, put it that way.
I'd like to circle back. Jim, what's your thinking on this again? Is it worth getting these balls?
I mean, it's a minimal investment and it's, I mean, nothing we have to decide now. It wouldn't be anything we could do until probably April, May timeframe. This time of year, nobody's going to be using it.
Okay. Well, we'll come back to that.
And that's not something that's going to shift the budget or anything. So I think we can certainly circle back on in the beginning of the year. And like, there's not a delay or anything on ordering these things, right? You order them, you get them within a week.
Yeah, they said they can get them right out to us.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Oh, did Jim give his report, the golf course update?
No.
Jim, can you give us your golf operations update?
Yeah, sure. We had another good month. John's done an incredible job adjusting and with the tournaments. He's been doing awesome with those. We wrapped all those up last month. We've got the club championship he's putting together for next weekend. And then we'll be done for the year. And then he's going to start reaching out to the events. About 30% of our tournaments have already asked to rebook. So we're going to start reviewing the pricing for next year and get that locked in and then start reaching out to them.
I have a side question, Jim. Why is the club championship so late in the season?
We always do it this time of year just because the amount of play we get. So we usually time it right before we're going to aerify and go to winter rates.
Gotcha.
We don't get a huge turnout, so it's not like it's a big money thing. It's more just for the regulars.
Yeah, I'm just bitter because I have something going on that weekend.
Smaller field, there we are.
We can look at that for next year.
Just check his calendar beforehand.
Yeah.
All right, any questions?
But I did talk to John about bringing back the big 2-man scramble because I know years past that was a pretty good turnout for that event.
That was always a good turnout, yes.
All right, thank you, Jim. Anybody have any questions for Jim? All right. Does anybody have any new business? All right. Do we have our minutes from the previous meeting? Did anybody have any questions, comments for the minutes? I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
So I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes from September 28th, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I need to abstain. I was not present.
One abstention. Minutes are approved. Is there any public comment? All right. Now would like to move our meeting to executive session.
There's no objection for your staff to be present, or did you prefer? That's all that's on Zoom.
I don't.
So we're gonna, these folks that are on here now won't be on here for executive session.
I think they will be unless you don't want them to be.
Typically, you wouldn't do that. That's the whole deal.
Yeah. That's what Cindy asked right before she got up to go lock the doors.
I don't think we need them on the executive session.
Yeah. Cindy, I think we just turn the Zoom off and we'll.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think just us in the room.
Okay.
Before we do that though, and maybe Jim, you can chime in here, but I know we talked about like the cleaning of the golf carts and stuff. Jim, did you have any conversation with Kevin or Rob as far as how that could potentially work, I guess, with the deck?
No, I haven't had an opportunity, but that's something, yeah, I'm sure we can work it out. We just got to look at the area once the deck's done and see about if there's another area we can utilize to clean them.
Okay, so as we're having executive session here, you don't have any concern or objection for what the proposed deck is?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Like I said, I know they took that into consideration, so we still have access for the carts. So we can work out the other part of it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
We're gonna
Thanks,
cut you
everyone.
off.
Thanks.
Good night. Take care.
Right.